Oh my. Black Prince, Bastard Sword. Step things up a level. And start. Die große Messiah. What's up, everybody? What's going on? It's your man Brian. Yeah, wow. That's a little video that I thought I'd use as an intro. Oh man, I'm just chopping pool noodles. It is cold. It is cold in the Hudson Valley, yo. Upstate New York, man. It is bitch ass cold. And I am home on a Saturday night and ain't doing shit. Hopefully going to get some work done. Hopefully get a little reading done, a little meditating too. But first I thought I'd just make a quick little video because, I recently moved into a new apartment after, 3 years of living hell trying to sell the house that my mom left me. And, starting over, starting fresh. And, things are finally coming together. This is starting to feel more like home. And so I've been, unboxing a lot of stuff. And one of the things that's interesting is when you move and you've lived someplace for like 20 years, first of all, you're astonished at all the shit that you've accumulated. I actually hadn't accumulated that much stuff except for books. Wow. Lots and lots of books. And then, of course, there was my toy collection and other stuff. But, first couple of months I was here, I was just sort of going through, I was just taking out the essentials. Now this feels more like home. I'm getting the place really straightened out. I'm starting to come out of the friggin', PTSD funk I was in for like 4 months after moving here. So when you're unboxing, you find interesting things. You find very interesting things. I found a box of old issues of Heavy Metal Epic magazine from Marvel Comics. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And a buttload of Fangorias and Starlocks. Really, really cool ones, too. I'm talking ones that go way back in the Disney, where, the cover story is like Star Trek The Motion Picture or the first Superman movie, and or The Empire Strikes Back, that sort of thing. So that stuff's cool. But I've also found a couple of things that just seem to just kind of fall out. And one of them is a letter from George R.R. Martin. Now this is open, right? But I haven't read it. I haven't taken this out and read. So this has been opened. It has been read. It's just I don't know what's in here because I haven't read it in shit since like late 80s, early 90s maybe. No, late 80s. I'm thinking. Back then, this is before George R.R. Martin was like the shit, right? The American Tolkien and all that stuff. He was writing for television. He worked on Max Headroom. He was like chief story editor on the Beauty and the Beast series, which I was a big fan of at the time, and recently tried revisiting it, and boy, it really didn't hold up. Vincent, who I thought was a Chad, turns out to be a total freaking simp. I could see why that show drove my brother crazy. But there was some good writing on it, and most of it actually came from him. Where did I first learn of Mr. Martin? It was from an interview in Starlog magazine. And in the back of Starlog and other science fiction magazines like Asimov's, you could order books from him directly, and he would sign them for you. And so I thought, oh, well, that's pretty cool, because I was such a fan for, this was back, in the 80s when he was mainly known as a science fiction and as a horror writer. Now, one of the things about Martin, and I don't mean this even as a diss, is that he has always been very opportunistic when it comes to genre. Horror was in, he was writing horror. Science fiction was in, he was writing science fiction. In fact, most of the stuff that I knew him for were his science fiction horror hybrid stories. In fact, before he created the universe of A Song in Ice and Fire, he created his very first shared universe, which doesn't have a name, but I always called it the Gothic science fiction universe of George R.R. Martin. And wow, I got some books here. Here, let me move the camera here so you can get a better look at these little treasures, if you will. These little treasures, if you will. I don't know why I'm turning into Dr. Rose, the American Dream. You think you've had hard times? I'll tell you about hard times. So, first book of his I read was this, Sand Kings. And it is still a personal favorite of mine. It was adapted into a television movie, a graphic novel, neither of which really got the story right. And this is not really just, short story collections were not selling at this time. So what you had were shared world anthologies, or they would take an anthology like this and make it look like it was a novel. So people would buy it thinking they were getting a novel. No, you're getting short stories, because people refuse to buy books of short stories for some reason, unless they all took place in the same universe. This is the fucking 80s, Market was very odd back then. That's why he helped create the Wild Cards universe. So he and other people could write superhero stories, because actually his very first short stories were superhero stories about a character. I forget his name, but he was basically like a Doctor Strange kind of a character. This one isn't signed. Got this one at the bookstore. Like I said, very first thing of his that I read, and the stories in here are fantastic. They're great. They're very thought-provoking. They're creepy as fuck. Martin has always been great with horror. I think that's one of the reasons why he does high fantasy so well now, is because high fantasy and horror are kind of like peanut butter and chocolate. They just go incredibly well together. Science fiction and horror also go very well together. And boy, there's some great stories in here. Sand Kings, of course, is really great. The Way of Crossing Dragon, that's a really wonderful story. Stone City, Star Lady. In the House of the Worm, oh my God. That's about the descendants of people that are in a spaceship that has been buried deep underground in some planet, and the people that are that live there that like don't even like sort of realize it. Like they've lived underground their entire lives, and the things they eat are disgusting. And that's a really fantastic story. Anyway, this was the one that really kind of sold me and made me a fan of his. Before that, he wrote this, Night Flyers. This is also a collection of short stories set in his sci-fi horror, gothic sci-fi universe. Great stories in here. Oh, A Song for Laya. He won the Hugo and the Nebula for that. He was already at this time a very well-regarded writer, but in the science fiction scene mostly. Although, of course, he certainly did dabble in horror. Tough Voyaging. This is another one of his science fiction novels. I forget if this is set in that same universe. I think it is. It's basically about a morbidly obese giant and a cat lover who comes into possession accidentally of this thing called the seed ship, which is to say it's kind of like a genetic Noah's Ark. And it has, samples of life forms and plant forms, flora and fauna from around the galaxy. His science fiction stories are set so far into the future that people have basically forgotten about Earth. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Once again, a collection of his short stories. Now, this Dying of the Light, I had a signed copy of this, but it was stolen from me, like a lot of my shit. And so this is another copy I got. This is a novel that's set in that universe, but what's really great about this is that it has a glossary. And so there's a glossary basically to his gothic science fiction horror universe. And so if you're reading these, you definitely want this, because you're going to understand these a lot better just by going to the glossary in this. And wow, yeah, this old hardcover Fever Dream, basically vampires on Mark Twain's Mississippi. And this is a really good novel. I don't know why they've... Oh, that's right. I was going to say about like movie adaptations. There was a feature film, low budget adaptation of Night Flyers. It was shit. There was a TV series version of Night Flyers too. I never saw it. It looked like trash. Although I can't say, I haven't seen it, so I don't know if it's any good or not. But the thing is with all these old novels, you think to yourself, well, gee, he's a big name now. Why aren't they turning these into movies? That's because his name is associated with high fantasy. So they don't want this. They don't want this science fiction or his horror stuff. They just want more Song of Ice and Fire, which is a real shame because they're missing out on some really great work by him. Oh, I think this is signed. Pretty sure this is signed. Yeah, there it is. To Brian, keep your steam up. Yeah, because he was very accessible. So I wrote him like these really nerdy fan letters, trying not to sound nerdy, trying to sound as grown up and dignified as a 18-year-old possibly can, or 17-year-old, or however old I was back then. And we corresponded a little. He was very, very friendly, very genial, very, very, very down to earth. And so I got a bunch of letters from him, but I think this might be the only one that survived, because I also have a couple of postcards from him. But I don't know. Let's open this up and see what kind of like florid insults he had for me. No, I mean he was always cool. Hey, what's up? What's up, Matt? I see you in the chat. Frankie, what's up? You got a rejection letter from Pixar? Okay. I used to save all of my rejection slips because somebody told me to do that because it'll inure you to rejection because you got to be ready for this shit. Okay, let's see. And then, look, this is not going to be. I guarantee you, this is nothing that's going to be dramatic, or revealing because, like I said, I was just writing him, you know, these like fan letters for the most part. Like, oh, you're so, without trying to like, be geek out too hard because he really was at that moment in time my literary role model when I was writing a lot of short fiction. So let's see, May 30th, 1989. 1989, man. That's really back in the day. All right, let's read this. Dear Brian, I wish I could be of more help, but I'm afraid I really don't have any colleges or universities to recommend to you. That's right, because this is when I was looking for I've been going to Rockland Community College, my community college, for like 2 years. Mind you, in high school, everybody, like pretty much almost all the teachers told me I was stupid. Of course, I had like horrible attention deficit disorder, but back then there was no such thing as ADD or other things like dyslexia. You were just stupid. And so I thought I was stupid. And then I went to college and I started getting like straight A's. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? And I realized it's because I was actually interested in the subject matter we were covering. So yeah, I must have asked him, like, hey, can you recommend any colleges that have good like writing programs for people that are into like, science fiction, horror, fantasy, that kind of a thing? I know that Jim Gunn heads up a science fiction program at the University of Kansas at Lawrence. Yes, I remember actually considering Lawrence, Kansas. But Kansas is already on your list. Yeah, I must have mentioned it. I also know of several schools that maintain extensive collections of science fiction, fantasy, and horror in their university libraries. But whether they also offer courses in these subjects, I could not say. Sorry, best of luck. Yours truly, George R.R. Martin. I like the paper's actually really cool. It's nice. George had nice stationery back then. So yeah, that's kind of neat. So he obviously went on to bigger, better, brighter things. I know he's getting a lot of shit right now, of course, because people are still waiting for that last Ice and Fire book. I got to keeps it real. I love the guy's work. I read the first book in the series, Game of Thrones, and the second, which I think was it A Feast for Crows? I forget. It's been a while, but I was down for it because I was like, okay, well, this is going to be a trilogy. And then he was like, no, it's not going to be a trilogy. It's going to be a quadrilogy. I was like, okay. And he was like, it's not going to be a quadrilogy. It's going to be a sixology or whatever. And I was like, okay, dude, what are you? I see you. I see what you're doing. Because, he knew that he had lightning in a bottle. And so he was going to milk that shit for all it was worth. Once again, he's not somebody who, like I said, very much an opportunist in terms of genre and career-wise. Like one of the rare creative people that's actually been pretty good at business. But I was like, dude, really? You want me to read 6 of these and they're each 1,000 pages long? I think your shit's pretty fly, but not that fly, right? Because I was thinking of all the other books. It's like, dude, when reading your one book, I could have read like 5 other books. And you're just telling one story, And at a certain point, it's like the lore gets so deep, you can't keep up with it. He can't keep up with it. In fact, he relies on fans very often to straighten shit out for him. But yeah, if you're a fan of his, definitely check out these early books. You can probably find these, I'm guessing, on Amazon or someplace like that, relatively cheap. Of course, I got some signed copies. There's a couple of books, quite a few actually, that I don't have with me at the moment. The Armageddon Rag, Armageddon Rag. That is one of his horror novels. That is all about rock and roll, and that's definitely worth checking out. But yeah, anyway, that's all I got. Fever Dreams, certainly. If you can find a copy of this, I definitely highly recommend it. Like I said, it's like vampires on Mark Twain's Mississippi. It's like one of his better ones, I think. Of course, he also wrote buttloads of short stories that showed up in so many other collections. I mean, you can't even count how many. He did the Skin Trade, which is a werewolf story that he did in a collection that I think it was him, Stephen King, and I forget who the third guy was, Ramsey Campbell, I think. They each wrote a novella for this thing, and I think the Stephen King story was about a haunted toilet. If I remember correctly, not one of his more memorable stories. Otherwise, I would have remembered it. But man, Martin could write a horror story. He wrote one called The Pear-Shaped Man that is creepy. Certainly it's historic for the fact that it turns cheese doodles into objects of horror. That is to say, when the heroine finds a cheese doodle in her underwear drawer, it is genuinely a moment of genuine dread. So yeah, check that stuff out if you can. Anyway, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think maybe I'll do a little game streaming or something like that. Maybe a little Dead by Daylight or something in that area. I got to get some writing done too. Matt, I know you're watching. I got to work on the Puritanian that is coming along. And got to get things ready for the Six Gun Gorilla Fund My Comic campaign, which is hopefully going to launch in March. I've been working on promos for that. I have a friend who is working on the trailer. I don't know if he wants me mentioning his name just now, but he is somebody that you know. I guarantee you that. And really looking forward to seeing how that turns out. Oh, Matt says, "Go live at midnight, bro. If you're down, what? Hanging out with you? Nah, I don't think so. No, of course, dude. I'm your boy. I'll be there. Anyway, everybody. I hope that you're having a good weekend, and I will talk to you. Hopefully, see you soon. Until then, peace out."